Level 1. Son of the Boss. You were born into power, but it was never meant to feel like a gift. Your father's name opens doors, bends men, and closes lives without a word. From your earliest memory, the world was a series of silent lessons. Watching adults exchange glances heavy with meaning, listening to conversations you weren't supposed to hear, learning that a pause could be sharper than a knife. The house you grew up in smelled of cigars, aged whiskey, and polished leather. Every room held a story, a warning, or a debt that had yet to be collected. Playgrounds and toys were a distant memory. While other children ran freely, you sat on the edge of your father's office chair, absorbing how deals were made, how alliances shifted, how men feared what they did not understand. You saw him turn arguments into opportunities and rivals into allies, watching the ease with which he commanded obedience. You learned early that strength was not in force, but in perception. A gesture, a glance, a smile could bend men more effectively than a gun. Servants treated you differently. Their deferential bows, careful avoidance of your gaze, their silent obedience. These small acts taught you the language of hierarchy before you could even read it. Weakness was contagious. Hesitation was noticed. Every subtle mistake in your presence was remembered. Every sign of confidence was catalogued. The world had no patience for errors, and you understood that even the smallest misstep could shape the path ahead. The streets beyond your father's house were another classroom. You learned which corners were safe, which eyes watched for weakness, and how loyalty was earned, tested, and enforced. You began to understand the invisible maps of power that governed the city. Fear was a currency, loyalty a fragile contract, and betrayal always a possibility. Even at your age, you recognized that your life was already bound to a hierarchy of consequences you could not escape. Amid all this, there were fleeting moments of normality. A hand held by your mother, the taste of ice cream on a summer afternoon. But they were fragile and fleeting, reminders of a world you would never fully inhabit. These moments made you keenly aware that the life you were destined for would demand calculation, patience, and ruthlessness. You began to watch, memorize, and internalize every lesson your surroundings offered. You are the son of the boss. Shadows are your inheritance, observation your first weapon, and patience your armor. The streets will soon notice you, but for now, you wait. You learn. You survive. And in that waiting, you understand that the empire you will one day inherit will not forgive hesitation or weakness. This is your foundation. A life of careful observation, silent lessons, and the relentless shaping of a future that belongs to no one but you. Level 2. First job. You turned 18, and the first test arrived without warning. Your father did not hand it to you personally, he never does, but his men brought the assignment. A collection, a simple job, meant to measure your composure and instinct. It seemed small, trivial even, but you had learned already that nothing in this world is simple. Failure carries consequences, and the streets watch every misstep like vultures circling above. You drive through the city at night, leather gloves gripping the wheel, heart hammering in rhythm with the engine. Two of your father's men ride with you, silent shadows, their eyes scanning every streetlight, every alley, every face. They are there to observe, not protect. If you fail, no one will save you. The city itself feels alive, every corner and doorway holding potential danger, every glance from a passerby a test. The meeting place is an abandoned warehouse at the edge of the docks. The man you're meeting is cautious, sly, aware of the power behind your name, but testing it nonetheless. He smiles too easily, tries to bluff, to twist the situation in his favor. You respond with measured words, careful tone, movements that appear practiced even though your pulse races. Inside, you feel every heartbeat, every surge of adrenaline. Outside, you are calm, controlled, unshakable. The exchange is tense but brief. Money changes hands. You leave with nothing but experience, yet it feels like survival itself is a reward. Driving back, you replay every motion, every word, every pause. One wrong move, one hesitation, could have ended the night differently. The city has a memory, and you are learning that the smallest error can ripple into disaster. Returning home, you feel the first real taste of independence and responsibility. The streets notice when someone moves confidently, even if they are untested. You have stepped into the world your father commands, and it has measured you, weighed you, and allowed you to pass. The first job is never just about money. It is about perception, about showing that you can carry the weight of the family name without faltering. The adrenaline lingers, a mixture of fear and exhilaration. You understand something essential now. Survival in this life is never guaranteed. Reputation is built silently, in small moments that seem insignificant until they are noticed. Your name is beginning to carry weight, though you are still only learning the rules. The city whispers, the streets watch, and somewhere in the shadows, the men who could challenge you are already taking stock. This first job has taught you patience, timing, and the delicate balance of fear and respect. You are not yet a player, you are a student. But the game has begun, and you have learned to move without trembling, to respond without hesitation. The city is taking notice, and soon enough, so will everyone else. For now, you wait, you learn, and you survive. The heir has taken his first step beyond the walls of privilege into the streets where power is claimed, not inherited. Level 3. Streets notice you. You are no longer invisible. The city whispers your name now, sometimes like curiosity, sometimes like warning. The first jobs were tests, small glimpses of the streets, but now the streets themselves are watching. Dealers, informants, low-level enforcers, eyes linger on you. Conversations pause when you pass. Respect is tentative, cautious, earned in increments. The first time someone hesitates before crossing you, you feel the first thrill of recognition. You are becoming more than a name, more than your father's son. The streets teach lessons differently than your father's office ever could. Here, loyalty is never guaranteed. Every handshake could conceal a knife. Every smile could hide ambition. You begin to notice the patterns. Who pays protection, who reports, who thrives on fear, and who waits for weakness. The network is alive, constantly shifting. Every movement you make is measured, catalogued. A wrong gesture can spread like wildfire. Reputation, you realize, is forged in the smallest interactions. Your first real confrontation comes quickly. A local enforcer, older, with a reputation for arrogance, questions your authority. He sneers, trying to provoke a misstep, testing whether the heir can handle himself beyond his father's shadow. You respond without aggression, without bluster, but with certainty. Your words, your posture, the calm edge in your tone are enough. He hesitates, then bows, a grudging acknowledgement of your presence. The streets have measured you, and you have passed the test. At night, you walk through alleys and abandoned buildings, observing how information travels. You see the subtle ways power is asserted. A nod from a corner, a quiet message passed along the line, a glance that changes a conversation. Every face, every gesture, every half-heard whisper is data. You begin to record it in your mind, constructing maps of influence, noting who can be trusted and who cannot. You understand now that knowledge is your weapon as much as any gun. The thrill of recognition is intoxicating. Rumors begin to spread. The heir is sharp, cautious, capable. People who once ignored you now give way in silence. You feel the first stirrings of confidence, but you also feel the weight of expectation. Every action is scrutinized. Every decision carries consequence. You are still learning, still testing, still proving that you belong in this world. The streets are teaching you patience, observation, and strategy. You are learning that fear and respect are intertwined, and that the difference between them is perception. You understand that you cannot rely solely on your father's name. Soon enough, the city will demand that you act decisively, independently. And when you do, the men who oppose you will notice, and so will the allies who will follow. You are no longer just a student in your father's empire. You are a presence. You are being counted. And for the first time, you feel the intoxicating truth of power. It does not come from birthright alone. It comes from action, from attention, from the quiet, cold calculation that ensures survival. The streets notice you, and they will remember your name. Level 4. Betrayal hits. The streets teach lessons the hard way. You thought you understood loyalty, thought the men who worked beside you would follow without question. Then it happens. A man you trusted, someone you considered close, turns his back. A shipment disappears, a deal collapses, and the whispers start immediately. The city watches. Every neighbor, every informant, every rival takes note of hesitation, of uncertainty. Mistakes are magnified, and betrayal spreads like wildfire. You trace the betrayal carefully. Every step, every conversation, every ledger entry is analyzed. The streets are unforgiving. Even the smallest miscalculation can have lethal consequences. Trust is a fragile currency here, easily counterfeited, and suspicion must always outweigh faith. You realize that the bonds you thought solid are conditional, measured in advantage, fear, and opportunity. Loyalty exists only where power commands it. Anger rises, sharp and hot, but you cannot act hastily. Acting in anger is what the streets expect from the inexperienced. You watch, you plan, you wait. Every detail of the betrayal is a lesson. How misdirection works, how rumors spread, how weakness is exploited. Night becomes your ally, giving you time to consider the options, to calculate the right moment for decisive action. Patience is power. Observation is power. And power is survival. When the moment arrives, you move deliberately. The betrayer is confronted in a quiet alley, away from prying eyes, and the message is clear without theatrics. Loyalty is not optional, betrayal is not forgiven, and the heir is no longer just a shadow behind his father's name. Fear passes silently from you to him, a subtle force heavier than any weapon. The streets notice. Your reputation shifts. The whisper of betrayal transforms into the acknowledgement of your ruthlessness. The lesson settles into you like a permanent weight. The city is alive, full of opportunity and threat, and survival depends on the ability to anticipate, calculate, and execute. Every man you trust is a potential enemy. Every gesture is a test. The streets do not forgive hesitation, and they never forget. The betrayal that could have been your undoing becomes a proving ground, sharpening your instincts, refining your understanding of power. You are no longer merely the son of the boss. You are someone who commands attention, whose decisions carry consequence, whose presence is measured carefully by everyone who watches. Betrayal has marked you, but it has not broken you. Instead, it has taught you patience, calculation, and the cold logic of survival. The streets have noticed this change. They see the heir growing sharper, more deliberate, and they know, when the time comes, he will strike, and he will strike without hesitation. Level 5. Rival attacks. The streets remember. They never forget a shift in power, a falter, a moment of weakness, and now they test you again. A rival family, older, established, with men who have seen too many battles, decides to push. They move against you in small, calculated strikes. A shipment intercepted, a business threatened, a message left on a corner like a knife to the chest. The first real challenge comes not in whispers, but in action. You realize immediately that this is no longer a game of observation. This is war, subtle and brutal, fought in alleys, offices, and back rooms. The men who attack you know your reputation. They respect the son of the boss, but they also see opportunity. Every rival hopes for hesitation, for a crack in the armor you have been carefully building. You cannot afford it. Hesitation now means loss, humiliation, perhaps death. You begin to coordinate responses with precision. Your men move with purpose, intercepting shipments, watching corners, tracking rumors, protecting your interests. Every decision matters. Every misstep has consequences. Unlike the betrayal before, this attack is external, relentless, and strategic. The rival family wants to test your nerve, your skill, your ability to command, and they will not stop until they see proof of weakness or defeat. Fear is still there, but it is tempered by experience. You understand the stakes, the calculations, and the rules of engagement. Violence must be measured, decisive, not impulsive. A single wrong move could ignite full-scale war that your father may not approve. But you are no longer just his son. You are beginning to act independently. Every countermeasure, every maneuver, every choice reinforces your presence on the streets. The first confrontation is sudden. A minor skirmish at a warehouse. Your men versus theirs. Shots are fired, threats exchanged, and a subtle warning is sent. You watch closely. There is a rhythm to this chaos, a pattern you recognize from your father's lessons. Control is not about winning every fight. It is about demonstrating that defiance will be met with consequences, swift and precise. By the end of the week, you have turned the attack into a demonstration of your competence. The rival family knows that you are not merely a child of inheritance. You can defend, retaliate, and command. The streets whisper your name with renewed respect, tempered by caution. You have survived the first true test from an external enemy, and the experience leaves you sharper, more confident, and more aware of the fragile balance of power around you. This attack marks a turning point. The heir is no longer a student or observer. You are now a participant, a rising force, someone whose actions are calculated, whose presence commands attention, and whose enemies are beginning to fear that the son of the boss is growing into a man who can defend and expand the family's influence. The streets have noticed, and they are watching closer than ever. Level 6. Strike back. The attack had tested you, and now it is time to respond. Revenge is not about anger, it is about calculation. Every move, every choice, every strike must send a message without weakening your position. The rival family struck first, thinking the heir was inexperienced. They misjudged you. You have learned too much, observed too carefully, and now you are ready to turn the streets in your favor. You begin by gathering intelligence. Every whisper, every informant, every observation becomes a thread in a web you will use to ensnare them. You map their operations, track shipments, note loyalties, and identify weaknesses. Nothing is left to chance. You coordinate with your men, dividing tasks, ensuring that every action has purpose. Your control is methodical, subtle, and deliberate. This is strategy, not impulse. Then comes the first strike. A shipment intercepted quietly, a rival's business disrupted with no violence. Yet the message is clear. The heir does not hesitate. The streets watch, eyes widening as the rumors spread. He responds, he retaliates, he punishes efficiently. The small acts accumulate, each one reinforcing your reputation. You are no longer simply defending. You are asserting dominance. Violence follows only when necessary. A confrontation in a narrow alley, a brief exchange of force, enough to remind the rival men that their actions have consequences. Precision is key. Overreach would signal weakness or inexperience. Underreach would invite further attacks. You strike exactly where it matters, at the right time, leaving no doubt in the minds of those who watch. By the end of the month, your response has shifted the balance. The rival family recognizes that the heir is no longer a passive figure. You are decisive, ruthless when needed, and clever in your maneuvers. Respect begins to replace fear in the whispers of the streets, tempered by the understanding that you will defend your position without hesitation. Your name carries weight independent of your father. The city feels different now. You walk through alleys and corners with the awareness of someone who has survived and struck back. The game has changed. You are no longer reacting. You are initiating. Every glance from an ally or adversary registers differently now. They measure you, calculate your capability, respect your authority. The heir has grown into a force, and the streets have taken notice. This strike back is more than revenge. It is a declaration. You are capable. You are dangerous. You are no longer only the son of the boss. You are a rising power, shaping the world around you through precision, patience, and controlled aggression. The empire you inherit is no longer a distant concept. It is beginning to take shape under your hand, guided by your cunning, foresight, and understanding of the street's ruthless laws. Level 7. Run the empire. The city no longer tests you. You are the one the streets answer to. The men who once whispered about your youth now follow your orders without question. Allies defer to your judgment. Rivals measure their moves carefully. Every decision you make shapes the balance of power. The empire your father built is still strong, but it is now under your hand, and with that comes a weight you feel in your bones. You walk through the neighborhoods, noting who thrives, who bends, and who watches from the shadows. Each corner, each block is mapped in your mind, every informant, every enforcer catalogued. The small skirmishes of your past, the betrayals, the rival attacks, have become lessons. Violence is a tool, not a first response. Fear is measured, respect is commanded, and loyalty is maintained like a delicate thread stretched across the city. The rival families still exist, but they no longer challenge openly. They test boundaries subtly, probing for weakness, sending whispers and threats that you intercept and turn to your advantage. Your men act as extensions of yourself, executing orders with precision, gathering intelligence, and defending your territory. Every move is deliberate, calculated, and aimed at maintaining dominance without overextending. You feel the weight of responsibility. Hundreds of men rely on your guidance and protection. Decisions are no longer simple. A single misstep could cost lives, destabilize alliances, or invite chaos. You balance reward and punishment, patience and aggression, knowing that power is not sustained by fear alone, but by calculated control. Observation and anticipation are your tools, as essential as any weapon. The empire stretches across the city like a living organism. You know its corners, its weaknesses, its rhythms. You understand the ambitions and fears of those beneath you, and the subtle rivalries that could undo everything if left unchecked. Authority is no longer inherited. It is exercised, maintained daily, and proven through decisive action. You have learned to read the streets as you read a book, to anticipate threats before they emerge, and to strike with precision when necessary. Now, the heir has become the ruler. The city bends to your will, the men respect your power, and your rivals watch from the shadows, wary and cautious. The legacy of your father is no longer just yours by birthright. It is yours because you survived, learned, fought, and mastered the rules of the streets. You are the boss now, and the empire is not only preserved, it thrives under your hand, shaped by your cunning, your control, and your unflinching will.